Hey guys, welcome back to Team Time. It's great to have you guys back. This week, our guest speaker is actually sick today, and so he didn't want to come in and get everybody all scared with COVID and all that. So this week it'll just be me, and I'll be speaking on helping young people be a voice. I talk about a lot on here, about how we're really trying to do something special, and we really are. But I want to go further in depth and explain how and why you guys as youth are the key to doing something special. I mean, there can be adults that can go into school and do all this other stuff and spend the whole rest of their lives and do nothing as close to as one teacher fully committed to God can do compared to a group full of adults. Because you're a young person, you can influence other young people. Young people have a lot of, as growing up, being a teenager, you have an issue with authority. I know I've had it, every teenager's probably had it at some point. And so you have an adult trying to come to you and tell you something, well, all that's going to do is just discourage you to do it, maybe. I'm not saying it always works as being an adult, but I'm just saying that youth can do so much more, and the importance of youth. There are a lot of different examples in the Bible about youth, and so that's what I'm going to be going over today. I have three examples that I'm just going to go over just to, kind of review and just kind of go over these three really godly Christians who were committed to God, and they were just able to do such a huge impact. Only youth, us as youth, have the ability to bring the nation to its future, because there are different generations, and us as the youth, as we grow older, will be in charge of someday, which is kind of scary. But as we grow older, we'll become more and more in charge until we're all in charge as the youth. Not as youth, but as we get older. But so if our generation is not, being led to the Lord and saved now, then we lose a lot. And so the importance of that. We don't always have to be in charge as youth, which is going along with what I just said, but you need to be a voice for God. You don't have to be in charge of something, be doing something, you just need to be in charge. Not in charge, be a voice for God. So we're going to go through, the first person I'm going to talk about is, a lot of people, there's a song about this and a lot of different other stuff, but it's a little maid, and I'll read the Bible verse, 2 Kings 5, 2-4. It says, "And the little maid said unto her mistress," I'm paraphrasing for this beginning part because there are 4 different verses, but it said, "When God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, Thus said the maid is of the land of Israel." So this maid, her master, had leprosy. If you don't know what leprosy is, it's a very serious disease that people die from. If you get it, you're pretty much dead. Nowadays we have cures for it, and it's not as common nowadays. But back then, during the biblical days, it was a lot more common. And so the importance of this is that she had faith in the Lord, and she was this small little, she was not very big at all. She was just a little person. But anyway, she'd taken in and was a servant to this, I don't think he was a king, but I think he was a man in the army, and he was very, very high up. He had a lot of authority. And so she said, "I know someone who can cure you of your sins." And so she ended up taking him to, I think it was Elijah or Elisha, I don't remember which one. But she ended up taking him to them, and they were able to cure him of it. But he had to believe first. So she was able to show him God. And so then he was able to know and able to tell all these other people about what God had done in his life. And so this is just an instance of how no other servant would have ever been able to do that, because everybody else was scared of him. And she just had such a heart for God, and the Lord touched upon her heart to talk to him, and so she did it. And so that's just her. And so the next person I'm going to be talking about is Joseph. Everybody knows who Joseph is. He was sold by his brothers off to Egypt, because he was the youngest brother, or he was the father's favorite, as his older brothers would say. And so they sold him into slavery to Egypt, and he ended up doing so well. He had a love for God. He worked as hard as he could work, and so he ended up moving up in the ranks, and he was just below the king of Egypt. So I'm going to read you this verse, Genesis 39, 2-3, in case you're wondering where it's from. It says, "And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand." Joseph had a gift. He did everything as if the Lord was right there watching, which he is. He's always watching you, but he was doing it as unto the Lord. He was doing it as to the best of his ability, no matter what it was. Even if something that he didn't know how to do, he would do it to the best of his ability. Which is such a huge thing. You need to always be able to do it to the best of your ability, because if you do it to the best of your ability, people will acknowledge you and say there's something different about that person. Then when you tell them, this is what's different about me, I believe in Jesus, and this is why I work my butt off all the time in the classroom and in sports, whatever, whatnot. And so that's just one of the huge important things of being a Christian. We've talked about your influence, and this applies right with it. So if you have any questions about influence and whatever that does, we have a video, and so you can check that out. It's on our channel, and you can check out influence. It's really kind of a great video, and we talk about it all throughout here because it plays such a huge part. If you don't have influence, then it's hard to do anything for God. Because if you have a bad influence, people will be like, I don't want what they have, and they'll reject you. So you need to be able to live your life for the Lord. So the third person we'll be talking about is David. David had a voice for God, not only in his life, but also in battle, which is what I'm going to talk about in this Bible verse. And it's 1 Samuel 17:29-45. It says, and David said, "What have I now done? Is there not a cause?" Then said David to the Philistine, "Thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of the hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied." Those of you guys don't know, most everybody's heard of the story of David and Goliath. If not, I'll go over it real quick. So basically, Goliath, he was this super huge, tall. I think he was almost 11 foot or a little bit taller. I don't remember the exact specifics. He was a huge dude. He had a size it was like a size 32 shoe, and I wear a size 14 shoe, and I'm 6'5", so I claim to be pretty tall and have a big foot. But that's a lot tall. That's almost twice my size. That's a pretty big dude. But so David, he was not super tall, and back then the normal height was, I don't even remember the exact, but normal height nowadays is like 5'10". I think it was like 5'5" or something crazy like that back then. That was like the normal height, or maybe even shorter. I don't remember, but I remember it was short. So anyway, David was not this gigantic dude, but he had faith in God. He knew that God had done something. If you know the specifics about David had also, he was a shepherd, is what he was. And so he watched over his sheep. He was the youngest, and he had all these older brothers, and while they were out working in the field, he had to watch sheep. And so as he was watching sheep, he had two different animals that he speaks about. He said he had a lion and a bear come to them, and both of them had taken the sheep. And so he went over to the lion. I think the bear came first. So he came over to the bear and beat the sheep out of the bear. So he got the sheep away, and then the bear ran off. Same thing with the lion. He beat the lion, but he was able to use a slingshot. And everybody knows about David's slingshot, about how he killed Goliath with a slingshot. And so there are a lot of different specifics that go into that story. We might do a story about it. We might do a little lesson about it later, because it's really kind of a neat thing. But so we'll move on about that. But David was also a teenager. And so this is when he was able to do huge things for God, because he was chosen of God. And that's saying a lot, to be able to be chosen of God to become king over Israel, which he ended up becoming later in his youth. And so these are just three people who, in their youth, did so much for God. And you look later on down their life, they made mistakes, yes, but they were able to do so much in their youth. They did more in their youth than they did when they became an adult. And that is such a huge thing, that you need to do more now where you are at. And it is such a huge thing. So all three of these young people were able to change not only the people they were around, because they had a great influence, but they were able to change the world, all three of them. And there are a lot of other stories about youth and little itty bitty things, but these are such three huge things that were able to change the world. And they were a voice for God. We were talking about David and how he was in battle. Our battle nowadays is a little different than David's battle. We just can't go out and start swinging a sword around at people. It doesn't really work like that. But our battle is through the flesh and blood. There are three things we battle. It's called the world, which is basically the world, all the evilness of the world. The flesh, which is your lustly desires. And then the third thing is the devil. Everybody knows who the devil is. So those are what we fight. And so those are what our battle is. Our battle is a spiritual battle. We need to be able to be fighting that every day. So we need to really help be a voice for the Lord. And so that's what I'm talking about. You need to be able to be a voice. You need to be able to, we're trying to really do something at Christian Youth Commission where not only you guys can walk around and say, hey, I'm a part of Christian Youth Commission. You know, if you need any material, we have plenty of material you guys can get you. Just hit us up in the comments. We'll let you guys know what you need to do. It's probably not anything you need to do on your end. We can give it to you. It's not a big deal. But we're really trying to do something special here. And so we need you guys to be able to we can do as much as we can to send you guys stuff and, tracts and pamphlets and flyers and all this other stuff. But if you guys are not a voice, then all that will just be of no use. So you guys, it's great to have you guys here again. God bless you. If you guys have any questions, hit us up in the comments below. See you guys next week at 5:45. Thank you.